and welcome back to part 11 of Neptunia Reverse, where today we're going to be helping out Lady Vert, because after curing Neptune yesterday, she implied that she wanted us back the following day because there was a matter she needed help on. But as we enter, I'm sorry for the problems the last time. Wow, who would have thought you could be terrified from an apology? What's this all about? Iffy, I've been waiting for you. Well, I suppose this means we're all in the clear. Yes, no need to worry anymore. I've asked Ivoire kindly to not do this again. Isn't that right, Ivoire? Yes, I'll never do it again, so please forgive me. Well, he really freaked out. I'm not even going to ask what asked means. Oh my, that is a special secret, isn't it, Ivoire? Now, there is something of urgency I need to speak of. Follow me to my room. To be frank, I need you to recover my lost power as a goddess. That was like a straight ball down the middle. What happened? It was on a day I was returning from an event I attended in secret. I was tired after a whole day of walking with goods I brought at the event. Then someone attacked me, and the next thing I knew, my power was gone. Oh, I can relate. All the walking at an event can really tire you out. So what happens when you don't have your power as goddess? Well, I start aging like normal, and I cannot use hard drive divinity. I see. So that's why Lady Vert didn't use HDD at all. So, you're just like me, a normal person? Exactly, hence I need the power back to prevent my aging process. Losing beauty and the ability to play in future titles is fear itself. I must stop this aging at any cost. Compa, tell me what to do here. Should I point out some things? I don't know, but I think it's best to leave it alone. So for me to play games for eternity, I need you to capture the culprit. Understood, we'll help. After all, we need to repay you for helping Nep. I could not discuss this with the Basilicom, so thank you. So no one in the Basilicom knows about this? Right, I cannot relay details that could cause concern to the public. Wait, the real reason why you were playing games in your room was, as you suspect, I was trying to avoid contact with everyone. Well, also because of the major updates to the online game rules too. It's like me with Genshin. I just vanish for a day. It's like, oh, it's a new update. That's not my cell ringing. Excuse me, this seems to be mine. Hello there. Lady Vert, Lady Vert! Yes, did you? Lan found the enemy! Wonderful. Where is the enemy now? Lan can see the enemy going to Louis. Please hurry. What's perfect timing? We will head there, so hold the enemy off. Roger. What was that called? Was that about an enemy? Lan spotted the enemy who took my power. I'll explain along the way. So she sent Lan out to be a scout to try and find Conversation. But we've got some new quests to pick up. Anytime you unlock a new dungeon, your first protocol should always to go to the guild to check what new quests you get. Because you will always get a new quest if a new dungeon opens up, regardless if it's mandatory or optional. And you're still going to see me completely swerve that one quest that adds 9% to other, just because all it does by making you do that is add more grinding time later for getting the true ending. If you don't care about what ending you get, which, I mean, there's only 2 endings. I mean, come on, you might as well go for the true ending. Then to do that side quest, sure. But if you're going for the true ending, others need to be on 0%. So doing a side quest that bumps it up by 9 is not in your favour. That was easy. Ivoire said that a Louis evangelist, Conversation, was pulling strings. Conversation? Do you know this Conversation? No, never heard of one. How about you, Nep? I know what a conveyor belt is. Not in the mood for jokes now. How about you, Compa? I've never heard of that name before either. My intuition tells me that this Conversation is the one who stole my powers. How can you tell? My sixth sense? In all seriousness, it is because only Neptune was targeted. Despite the motive to kill Overlord worshippers, Iffy and Compa were spared. True. So I suspect Neptune was targeted because she is a goddess. I doubt there are many who seek to harm the goddesses. Odds are likely the culprit is someone under CPU Lady Whiteheart. Ooh, this is starting to sound like a mystery novel. But why would Nip-Nip's life be targeted while Lady Vert was spared? I assume they knew I had no interest in the console war, so they let me live. That strangely makes sense. Lady Vert, that was amazing. All I did was use sane evaluation through what we already knew. Well, if you're not that familiar with my channel, Yeah, I have a tendency to read sentences slightly wrong, but get to the same point. So you have to forgive me on that. It happens. I'm a lot better at it than I used to be, because I used to read a lot slower, and so when it came to doing the voice stuff, it didn't come to me so quickly, and sometimes I have to read it like 4 or 5 times. But I have got better. Also, I have no idea when I picked up the Leafy Blower Crimson Flames, which is just a cosmetic item for Iffy. Well, I have no idea when I picked it up, nor do I know when I picked up the mini Silk Hat. But I'm like, you know what, sure, I'll chuck them on. I also picked up the Mystic Hat for Vert. And we're just like, yeah, that's going on. Because look at that. Look at that attire with like that, with the dress that I got her and that. I mean, oh, that's so cool. Like, I even have to zoom in on it. I'm like, man, she looks sick. But this area is essentially the last area of the chapter. Similar to when we went through the Stations chapter, chapter 2. None of the chapters in this game are particularly long, so expect a lot of them to go by in 3 to 4 videos. Not all of them, but a decent chunk. I mean, chapter 1 was a little bit longer because you had to spend time introducing stuff. And then we have the video at the once we entered chapter 2 and the video when we broke chapter 3, where instead of doing that chapter we went and did side stuff for a video. But the general rule of thumb is that all the chapters aren't that long. It kind of shift gears in the second game. The second game has a lot more diversity in chapter length. Like, some chapters are pretty short, others are surprisingly large. Like, I distinctly remember chapter 2 being far longer than it has any real right being. But then saying that, Net 2 is also a couple chapters shorter than the first game. But the chapters themselves are a bit chunkier, so it ends up kind of working out. I mentioned in my review that my total playtime was like about 4 hours shorter in total in the second game than it was the first. And I know a lot of it was because it wasn't my first rodeo of the series anymore at that point, and so I had a better understanding of the fundamentals, so I just got to swing of it a lot quicker. But I do think a lot of it is also due to the fact that the game is just that little bit shorter. And if you're going for all the endings, which, if you want to do all the endings in Net 2, not only do you have to understand you're going to be doing several playthroughs, you also need to understand that you need to do the playthroughs in a very set order, because if you don't, certain endings will be locked off because New Game Plus carries over things that affect your endings. New Game Plus in Net 2 carries over your Lily rank, and about half the endings are directly affected by what your Lily rank is, and 2 endings are can specifically only happen if your Lily rank is super low. And so, like, if you go for any of the Lily rank endings, you'll have to do a completely fresh save at some other point solely to get those 2 endings that aren't tied to Lily ranks. And it's a problem that I'll talk a lot more about if the second game ever comes around. But it is something that I genuinely criticise, and was by far my biggest criticism of the second game. Because they did so many different endings in the second game, not a single one of them is really satisfying. None of them really get any real, length, longevity, or closure to them, to such an extent that when I got the true ending, I thought I hadn't got the true ending. And it was only when the trophy popped after the credits, I was like, oh no, that was the true end? Oh, okay. But I genuinely thought I'd missed something and it was just the normal ending I'd got, or something like that. But no, it was the true ending. And it was baffling to me how underwhelming it was, and how little there was to it. And it's something that I very much appreciate them not only addressing this, but making a joke at it. In the third game, they kind of acknowledged they went way too far with the endings in the second game, with how many they did. And although the third game does have multiple endings, it's a lot less, and it's a lot more manageable, and they kind of all tie into one another moving forward, so it's a lot easier to do. Because the way they work it in the third game is that there's a point in the game where a significant event will happen, but if you have a specific item, when you get to it, something else will happen, and you dodge the first ending. And then a few chapters later, a similar situation will happen, but you need several items instead of just one. And then if you have those several items before a plot event, that plot event will happen slightly differently, and you will dodge the second ending. Once you've dodged the second ending, you're locked into the true ending, because there's only one more ending you can then get beyond it. So that one will be a lot easier to do, because essentially, when I'm showing off the endings, I could just save in a separate file, show you what that ending is if you go down that wrong route, and then load the save, get the item, and then move on. And then when we get to the second part split, show you the wrong route, and then like it'll be easy enough to show all the endings when it gets to that. And with the fourth game, and when I played Neptunia V2R, one of the changes that was not controversial, because I think that kind of exaggerates how much it was talked about, but it was something that was talked about, is that V2R decided to made the decision against V2 to lock out the normal ending and make it so you could only get the true ending. It would stop you from progressing until you got the prerequisites to get the true ending. Which is interesting because, and I can't say this with certainty because I haven't played V2, but from what I've been told, getting the true ending in the original V2 isn't as simple as fulfill the requirements that V2R tells you. You have to actually do it in New Game Plus, because the options to go inside the goddesses' heads to view their dreamscape isn't available to you on the first run. And so you have to actually do New Game Plus. And considering it's the longest Neptunia, but then you get the extra 2 dungeons and the true final boss at the end. Which I can imagine the reason why they made it locked into the one ending in V2R is because doing the entire game again is not worth 2 extra dungeons and an extra boss. Well, 2 extra bosses because you rematch or Coronet in the Giant. You fight her a second time instead of just once. And so that's not worth it enough, I think. So I think they kind of acknowledged that when they were looking back on it, went, nah, let's change it. It's not as bad as Death End 2's, you get a teaser for the sequel if you go through the whole game again. Like, it just adds extra plot stuff, and it's like all the extra plot stuff is just a giant teaser for the sequel, but I digress, that's a different game. But speaking of, I wonder when we'll get Death End 3, because I mentioned like a while ago that there were a few weird videos that popped up on the internet that seemed to be referencing Death End request stuff. And a lot of people thought it was them like kind of shadow teasing Death End 3. For me personally, I think it will happen next year. I don't think it will be announced this year. I think it will be announced next year and will either come out at the end of next year or early 2023. And my reason for thinking this is because the team that makes it, GJRPG, have been putting all of their priorities into Mary Skelter Final. And I think they're going to wait until Mary Skelter Final is completely done and dusted. It's out and out in the West. Which it comes out in the West, I believe, next month. And I'll probably get it. It's just I'm not as big a Mary Skelter fan as I am the other Idea Factory / GJRPG games. Like, I'm not as big of a Mary Skelter person as I am their other stuff, but I'll still pick it up and I'll still give it a go. I mean, it took me a year, but I platinumed the Mary Skelter Nightmares, and the only reason it took me a year is because that final dungeon bored the hell out of me, and so I stopped playing it, and then I just forgot to go back to it, and then like a year later I was like, oh, I need to actually finish this. Which, to be fair, isn't it isn't like completely Mary Skelter's fault. The gameplay formula of it, it's I know I'm playing like Neptunia 1, and Net 1 is very formulaic and very repetitive in some parts of its game, but Mary Skelter is a lot more lenient on the gameplay side than it is its story side. And similar to, say, Persona Q, when I played that, the gameplay isn't enough to carry it, in my opinion. I can see why people like it, and the music is phenomenal in the Mary Skelter games. Like, it's some of their best music is in Mary Skelter, and I'm like, why? I'd love to hear some of that music in, you know, other stuff. But the gameplay of them, it's just not interesting enough to maintain my interest. Especially because you don't control that game's equivalent of the Super State. In the same vein, you don't control like the dragon powers in Dragonstar. Your Blood Maiden gauge will build up regardless of what you do, and then when it fills up, you go into your Blood Maid form, and you want to try and organize it in a way that it only pops up when it's a significant fight, but that rarely happens. But they also have this thing where the more you're hurt, the darker that the shade of that bar will get. And I say, keep in mind, I'm only talking about Mary Skelter Nightmares. I've never played Mary Skelter 2, so I don't know if that changed it. But what they did in Nightmares is that every time you got hurt, that bar got darker. And essentially what it meant is, when the bar filled up when you went into your Blood Maiden form, the darker the bar was, the higher a chance you'd go into a Blood Rage instead, where they become far more powerful, but you'd lose all control of that character. And about 90% of my game overs were due to Blood Rages. because they would use a group-wide attack on our team where the random chance is and just kill us all.
Lucky.
Because similar to like the dragon forms in Dragonstar Varnir, they're balanced for the enemy, not for you. And so if you go into a Bloodlane form and they attack an ally, they will wipe the floor with them. Just because of how they handled the balancing works for it, they only prioritized like making sure it was balanced around the enemies you face and not at all working around how it would work if it comes straight back at you. And so it just kills. Speaking of just kills, here comes our viral enemy. This is something that I'm glad that the series as a whole moved away from as it went on, because I don't like viral enemies. Like, I get what they were trying to do, is that every fight has a chance to suddenly become an event. It has a chance to suddenly become a bigger deal than just another fight along the way. But I feel like there was better ways in doing it than just making a random enemy turn into a boss, you know? Just turn into an enemy that just randomly transforms into something that can wipe your whole party in one turn if it gets lucky. Especially like if you go to the optional dungeons in late game or some of the stuff you might unlock presumably in post, you'll learn a lot there that some of the like viral enemies in those dungeons can just do one. They're just not fun because they'll just randomly transform. It's supposed to be when the lower the health, the higher the chance. So you got to try and push to break their guard and kill them in one. But it doesn't mean it's a 0 when they're at full health. Hence why that wolf went viral earlier. And so sometimes it will just happen all the time, and you just gotta deal with that. If you get 2 fights in a row, or worse, 2 enemies in the same fight that go viral, it's usually better to just run away from the fight and actually try and fight it, because it's not. You're just gonna burn through a lot of resources for no good reason. Even when we start completing the team and we get all the goddesses, because as you might have gathered, my final team is going to be all 4 of the goddesses. Like I've mentioned before that in the original version of the game, where you only had 3 playable characters, my team is always Nep, Vert, and Blanc. But I will make it so Noir is in the team as well, to make it the full force 4 goddesses. I'll try and showcase a couple of the human characters. The ones that feel like they're just there for the sake of fleshing out the cast, I'm not that fussed about. This isn't V2R, where it felt like every single character had at least some relevance to the story, so I tried to make a point of alternating the cast members every dungeon, because I felt like they were all significant and all had something to say in the fight. It's not like that with this game. After a while, like Iffy and Compa get a little bit of more screen time because they're Net's best friends, and it's just how they handle it. It's the same across the whole series. Iffy and Compa always get a little bit more playtime. But then after that, Magus gets like a 1% significance because she actually is chasing her own objective and pops up in a couple more cutscenes than most of the other characters that get tacked onto this game. But then everyone else, genuinely, I feel like nothing would be lost if they weren't in the game in terms of narrative. And because they don't have any real significance, I don't see the point in keeping them. And so I probably won't be using them that much. I'll use Magus when we get her, but I won't be using the rest that much unless it becomes mandatory one reason or another. But anyway, we've managed to catch up with Conversation, so we've got a cutscene.
You go, Conversation. How dare you try to kill me? I won't let you get away with it.
You were just buying time?
Well done, Lon Lon.
Lon Lon is scared of that, Granny.
Oh, now I'm a granny?
We'll take care of the rest. You hide somewhere away from the danger.
Lon Lon will go and hide.
Conversation, was it? I would like to get back what you took from me.
Oh, I thought you were just an otaku sissy, but you've done well.
My, don't underestimate a gaming otaku, will you? Your method was starkly similar to a mystery game I just cleared.
Ooh, the birth of a new detective, Sherlock Vert. Yes, and a gaming one at that too.
How dare the publisher mimic my plans into a game? After I defeat you, I will destroy that publisher who got in my way.
So that's your true form? Well, I won't let you destroy any publishers.
Hey, that's the elderly lady we met at Planetoon.
Aha! Conversation is my fake form.
You know who she is?
Yes. She's a bad person who tried to take away our key fragment.
I must repay you for the last time. The same will not happen again.
Oh, so it's on. Well then.
If you are going to fight, I won't go easy on you.
Well, let's see how well you fare then.
Can you handle me?
And just like at the end of Chapter 1, now at the end of Chapter 3, we're fighting R4. And it is something that I didn't really mention when we fought in Chapter 1, but I want to bring mention to now. The theme they gave her in Reverse is a remix of the main villain battle theme from the second game. And there's a lot of tracks in this that I feel like are remixes from later things. Like, when we got trapped in the Avenir storage facility, I complained that I didn't like that the dungeon theme that they put in Reverse is the final dungeon theme of the third game. I feel like that was a bad choice because it spoils that theme when you get to the third game afterwards. But remixing the main villain theme of the second game for R4, I think makes a lot of sense and works, because they essentially just only played the boss scene when you fought R4 usually in the old versions. But R4 is the main villain, so she should have a more significant theme. And in the second game, when they re-establish the entire cast of characters, well, they need to re-establish a new version of R4. They need to re-establish Hyperdimension's version of R4. And they do that by having the main villains kind of sort of work for her, but not really. And so because there is a slight, it's not a major tie, like I'll get more into it when we get to that second game. Because there is a tie between the judge, oh, what are their names? Like Judge, Brave, Trick, and Magic. The villains of the second game, because they R4 has ties to them. Playing a remix of their theme, I think, makes enough sense in this case. Like, there's enough dots connected that I can justify it. As my throat goes slightly, sorry about that.
Is that it?
And this is also around the point in the game. You might have noticed it earlier in the footage, and it's been present for a little while. Less so Iffy, but certainly Compa. The human character's worth is going to really start to run dry soon. You might have noticed there that like any damaging attack you try and do with Compa the whole time, R4 still has guard point, is straight up doing 0 damage. And that's just because human characters' stats as a whole are significantly lower than the goddesses, even when they're not in their goddess form. Which is why Vert is doing damage and Compa's just over here with the 0 club. And it is a criticism that is series wide, because it's even present in V2R. The only 2 human characters in V2R are Iffy and Compa, and they're genuinely useless in V2R. Like, I only had them in my party when it was mandatory, and you saw for themselves there was like a whole fight they spent on their ass because they just got murdered. Actually, I say that, Adult Nep is also a human character, and she's not bad, because they gave her normal Neptune stats. They just didn't give her the goddess form. So she's like a half goddess almost in terms of how they handled her. But the actual like pure full-on humans in terms of stat range, Iffy and Compa, both of them were terrible. Which that's the thing. In the 5th game, please bring Adult Nep back. Or Big Nep. Like I mentioned, I ended up going into a rather lengthy talk in V2R back at the time of like what I would love to see in a 5th game. And like my main one, like there's a few points of it that have changed, but it's like basically I'm getting more lenient because it's like I just want a 5th game, goddammit. But I want it to be, if they had the budget and time to do it, 5 acts, and I want 1 act to be completely pulled away from the rest and instead follow Uzume and Big Nep, because Uzume and Big Nep start traveling across dimensions through the help of oh, was it Kra? The evil version of Histoir? I think it's Kra. They start like essentially galaxy hopping, and I'd love to see an entire act just focused on those 2 being those 2. I'd love there to be an act where you hop back to Ultra Dimension, and you get to catch up with everyone there, and say only Plutio and Pishi joins that party because you've already got Hyperdimension, Noir, Blanc, and Vert. Maybe you meet Ultra Dimension's version of them again because you haven't seen them since the 3rd game.
Leave it to me. No, it's my turn.
But that would be cool, and I'd love to see a story act in Hyperdimension, because to jump the gun a little bit, getting a genuine, full, traditional Hyperdimension experience after Hyperdimension is introduced, like I said, this game's in Super Dimension where it's not canon anymore, doesn't really happen until V2R. And what I mean by this is in the second game, for the major majority of it, you're playing as the Little Sisters, and so you don't get the traditional Neptune, Noir, Blanc, and Vert experience until like the last chapter of the game. In the 3rd game, you literally do one dungeon at the very start of the game and 1 dungeon at the very, very tail end of the game, everything in the middle, you're in Ultra Dimension. You're not in Hyper Dimension, so you don't get to like thoroughly explore the homeland, so to speak, with the cast of characters it was meant for. So like in the second game you don't have the there's the problem with you don't have the cast for most of it, and in the second game you have the cast but you don't have, you know, the land for most of it. And so when it comes to V2R, the fact that finally addressed it, but only for one story act, it's like, why did it have to take this long before we got a genuine, the actual goddess crew in Hyper Dimension? So I want there to be another full act in the 5th game that is that, where it's the 4 goddesses doing something in Hyper Dimension. And then one last one act will be in a completely new dimension. I'd kind of want it to be the last act, so it's like something brand new and explorative. And maybe it's like, I know I'm reaching for the stars here, but like literally, I want them to cover all bases. Like I want an act in Heart Dimension, or Zero Dimension, depending on how you look at it. I want one in Ultra Dimension. I want one in Hyper Dimension with the main crew. And I want one in a new dimension, and that new dimension would just be exclusive to the 5th game. Essentially a victory free, because the victory games is what introduce dimension moving anyway, so why not call it victory free? But once you defeat R4, I completely talked over that cutscene, but essentially, because she stole Vert's power, she's going to use it on us. So we get yet another scripted lost fight in this game. Which is something else I'll criticize. This game likes to lean on these sometimes a bit too much, making it kind of annoying when there's a genuine difficulty spike you have to work out how to beat versus and just the game start deciding you have to die in this fight, because you have to lose this fight and then there'll be another cutscene before we can find our way through. Especially because this boss heals 32,000 HP every single turn, so even if you're in New Game Plus and like level like 200 or something, yeah, good luck winning. I hate to say it, but that was a worthy exhibition of my power. I can't believe it, even in this form. This is such a cheat, it has to be a mod. Decided the goddess is groveling in front of me. Splendid. Ha! Neptune. Here's one for you too. Lady Vert. Now that no one can get in the way, I'll slowly send you to your grave. Lady Vert is in danger. What should Lanlan do? Lanlan needs to get help quick. Lanlan thinks last station seriously sucks bad. Lanlan escaped from the horrible land, but what to do now? Lanlan is hungry. My, such a cute little piggy, aren't you? Who are you? I'm just a goddess passing by. You look hungry. Do you want to dine with me? Now, I won't let you sleep tonight. More online games tonight? Yes, I have an urgent request that I need to clear. Can Lanlan go in as a gunner class? This is a high-level quest, so I'll kick you out if you come in that class. That's so cruel. She's like, how dare you go DPS? Isn't Lady Vert a goddess? Yes, but my powers were stolen by someone. Are you sure you want to tell Lanlan about this? If I did not trust you, I would not have spoken with you in the first place. Lady Vert. Lady Vert is hard to play games with, but she's really kind. It's Lanlan's turn to help Lady Vert. I have no idea what voice I'm giving Lanlan. I mean, what can you do? What's the matter? Where did all the poise of yours go? Ha! The power is fine, but its overly suggestive front is such a bother. I'm tired of this form already. Let me just take your power now. Let's see how you'll like being killed by your very own power. Now don't move. Stop! What? You still here? No one notices Lanlan! Ball of light. How dare you, my power is a goddess. Miss If, give that to Lady Vert, hurry! God, I know it's IF, but this is your fault, deja vu again, damn it! Miss If, please take care, Lady Vert, I'll kick you out. Lanlan. Lady Vert, here, take this. Yes. This power, it feels like it's been a while since. I will use this power to defeat you and all your evil deeds. So this is Lady Vert in HDD. How pretty. No, beautiful. Thank you, Iffy. But let's first defeat our enemy in front of us. Neptune, Compa, can you still fight? Of course. I won't be beaten that easily. Nep is going to stand, I'll stand too. How persistent. No matter, I can take care of you all. Well said, but you'll soon regret your decision.
Can you handle me?
Alright, round 3 with R4.
Ready.
But now this time, we have Greenheart in her full goddess form. And yes, it's the reason why Greenheart is visually as suggestive as she is a joke that they play twice, because they do it the same with Peachy. It's because at the time, Xbox always touted as, and it still does to this day, touts itself as like the strongest console on the market, even though it's kind of lacking in a lot of other ways. And that's not me picking a side. I want everyone to just play video games. I'm just pointing out that the Xbox family has kind of had a long series of weird issues. And I know Sony does as well. I mean, my god, you know I've bitched about that a lot, but I'm getting off topic. The point is that because they always talk about how powerful their consoles are, they represented that in Vert by having her be the tallest goddess and the biggest features. I mean, that's the way to put it. And so they play this joke twice, because Peachy, representing PC, is by nature the strongest goddess, and so they make her slightly taller than Vert and slightly bustier than Vert, and it's just the joke they make. It's also why they jab at, to jump the gun a little, Blanc, because Blanc represents Nintendo, and Nintendo also has a habit of, in terms of power, having the weakest consoles, which is why she's like borderline flat-chested, which is a really mean joke in that sense of the word. But it is what it is. And I'll be curious to see if in a 5th game, because they like to make the characters' relationships slightly bounce off real world events. Nintendo and Microsoft have got a lot better with each other. They're not like the best of friends, but they have got better with each other over the years. I'm curious to see if in a 5th game, like, they would make Blanc and Vert kind of bury the hatchet a little bit, because they squabble a lot. Like, they don't hate each other. Like, the 4 goddesses is more so in Hyperdimension. They have their problems with one another, but they're essentially, they've always got each other's backs. They're like a group of sisters. Like, it's always very comparable to siblings. That they argue a lot, they bicker a lot, but they got each other's back more than anyone else.
Now, who will it be?
I am ready.
Which I know kind of goes against my speech I made the other day of wanting Nep and Noir to actually hook up at some point, but that's a different point. That's just because they keep on teasing it and never following through with it, and it's annoying. But speaking of relationships, this is kind of the only... I know I brought it up a couple of times, but like, enjoy Vert and Iffy being flirty with each other, and enjoy them kind of sort of dating, depending on how you look at it. Because this is, like I said, this is the only game you're getting it in. But as we are wailing on this boss fight, because this is literally the same fight we just did, but now we have the goddess. I want to talk about something that I've never really been a part of, but over the past like 6 or 7 months, I've become a part of, and so I got to be a part of this event for the first time. I got into VTubers about 6 months ago. Yes, I did fall down the rabbit hole. Also, now you'll get to watch the full force of Spiral Break. And I got into it with Hololive English, well, as it is, Holo Myth, or Gen 1, because no matter how fancy they try to be, everyone's just going to call them Gen 1. I don't know why the English brand decided them specifically had to try and be unique about it when it's literally just Gen 1, and now it's Gen 2, but anyway. And so I watched a lot of that, and then I got into the Indonesian brand with... Because, yeah, I only really watch Hololive. I watch a smidge of this shoujo, but I'm not really into their stuff as much. And it's not just because they're looser and sometimes a lot more, like, blunt. I don't know how to put it. It's just they don't vibe with them a lot more. It's a lot calmer or excitable or just happier genuinely in Hololive than it could be in shoujo sometimes. But I've got all the Hololive ENs, and I watch all the Hololive ID. So I did watch all the debuts of the Holo Council, or the Gen 2. And I have favourites. I like Crony. Crony was... I immediately was like, Crony's amazing. And I relate to her a lot when she was talking about one of her goals is just she just wants to be happy. I was like, same girl, same. Like, she's my favourite. I'd probably say my second favourite is Mumi. And then the other 3, I'd probably like hover around the same. Like, I adore all of them. And I thought this boss fight went on longer, so I was going to be able to talk about it more, but I guess I'll have to save that conversation for another time. But I do want to talk about them, because there is a lot of specific things that I genuinely really like and want to support about all the new members. I also want to talk about Iris, because I haven't really talked about her either, because I haven't really spoken too much about it, and I think Iris is amazing in her own way. But let's get back to this cutscene. She's gone. And just when we had her, it seems she's quite adept at running. If we meet her again, she will not get away. Well, let's just be happy that you got your power back. We all need to rest. So true, I do need to attend to Lan Lan, so let us return, shall we? Oh, Nep, just a second. What's the matter, Compa? Did you find something? Well, I think so. Take a look. A key fragment? What's one doing here? Let me explain. That voice, Histy. It's been quite a while, and nice to speak with you, Lady Vert, IF. So you're Histy? I thought you were sealed away. I am using the resonance of the key fragments you found. This way, I am able to temporarily speak through them. I guess I understand, so why was this key fragment here? That is the one that R4 was carrying and dropped. R4, so that's her name. I believe she feared you collecting them, so she kept one on her. That would explain why it was right here. One word of warning, R4's true power is the power to copy, so? I see. I did get my power back, but she could have a copy of it with her. Yes, R4 may alter the copied power to make it her own. It's a scary force if she took Nep's power as well. That's why I wanted to warn you all of her unique power. It seems my time is up. Please continue looking for the key fragments. I can't hear the voice anymore, but the information we got was invaluable. True, I must now be wary to avoid the same happening again. What do we all do now? We'll head back to Planetoon first and then head on to Louis. Oh, going home already? Let's have fun here for a while. Histoire asked us to collect the key fragments. Getting those is first priority. I would love to be with Lady Vert, but we have to do with what we have to do. Oh, you're so committed. What will you be doing, Lady Vert? There's quite a number of tasks to take care of, especially after all this. I need to keep watch of the Overlord worship and enemy discs too. But once I am done, I will definitely go and see you, Iffy. Yeah, because she likes her. There's quite a number of tasks to take care of, especially after all this. Also, welcome to the next chapter. It does just transition into chapter 4 now. So, why are you here with us? It can't be helped. I couldn't stop my inner urge to see Iffy. But what about all the work? You said you had a lot to do. Oh, if Wa and Lan Lan can take care of it, no problem. Please confirm and approve of these documents by today. We're getting complaints that none of them responded. What is going on? Wait, please, let me sleep. Lan Lan had no sleep for 3 days. Lady Vert, help. We have 2 more manifestos to add. I almost feel like I heard screams of agony from Lanebox. Oh, now, being strict is fundamental in providing a solid foundation. Lady Vert, you're squeezing me too tight. Help. My, how quickly I found out that I need Iffy around me. I need Iffy to be with me 24/7. And hence, I won't let you go easily, my sweet Iffy. She's gonna get suffocated to death in between them. Why do I feel like I've seen this before? Nip, I bought us some pudding. Oh, Compa, you're super. I made some green tea pudding this time, just for you, Nip. My, does it look delicious? May I have one? Yeah, here you go. Now, Iffy, open wide. I can eat the pudding on my own. Oh, don't be shy. I want to spoon it to you. Now, open wide. Whoa, is it getting hard in here? It's just like a dating sim. I'm only complying because I'm refusing Lady Vert would be rude. Speaking of, Vert, you came all the way down, so how about joining us? Of course, being twisted on Iffy's little finger, I would be happy to join. Okay then, welcome to our happy camper party, Vert. And that's why I said only Noir leaves after your first meeting, because Vert is way too committed and so won't go. What's the matter, Iffy? I got info that Conversation is in Louis, so let's hurry there. And there is our gateway into chapter 4. Okay, but before that, where did you get all this intel from? Yes, that's something I was wondering too. Nothing secret, I have a lot of friends that give me info from all over. Iffy, you have more friends than just us? I've been traveling all this time, of course I got friends. I'm so envious that you have so many friends around the world. By the way, where is Lady Vert? She said she needed to go shopping, maybe a new release came out. Despite being a goddess, she sure doesn't act like one. I'm home. Speak of the devil, welcome back, Vert. Oh my, if he's back too, was there any information to share? Yeah, I got info that Conversation is in Louis at the Basilicom. Well, we must depart to Louis then. I'm glad I made this purchase. Oh right, what did you buy, Vert? A new video game release? Well, yes, but my main buy was... How does it look? Am I stunning or am I stunning in these? I love Vert's confidence in wearing glasses. Everyone should have that level of confidence in wearing glasses. This stupid stigma that wearing glasses somehow makes you less attractive is utter bullshit. There's no way two ways about it. Glasses don't take away from your attractiveness. If you're attractive, you're attractive. Glasses won't change that. So wear those sons of bitches if you need to wear them, or even if you just want to. Thank you for noticing, Iffy. I sense your love coming to me too strong. I don't think Iffy said anything about love. Anyway, now that I'm set, let us depart to Louis, shall we? Compa, you got a warmer with you? Well, I have some from last winter. Why? Let me guess, you've never been to Louis? Yesy. Alright, I'll spare you the details right now. Let's get going. Iffy, it's freezing here. Yup, Louis is perennially covered in snow, thanks to its all forever winter. So how about it, Neb? Hey, Snow, look! Snow, my breath is white. Dragon breath attack! Oi, let's make a snowman. I'll take that as an answer, Lady Vert. I'll happily take the warmer, yes. Lady Vert, why are you hugging me? Well, you did say warmer, so I grabbed my warmer, Iffy. Please, this is embarrassing. Here, take the warmers instead. Let me stuff those between my endowments. There, now back to Iffy. Well, that was fun, Compa. Let's leave those two lovebirds and get going. And on that note, we're at the end of Chapter 3. We've opened up Chapter 4. So that means that next time on Neptunia Reverse, instead of advancing the plot, we got an optional dungeon to explore. So until then, you guys take care now. I also get escape anywhere, so I don't have to run to an edge anymore. That's appreciated. Anyway, take care. Peace.